mimma yatakhayyarun. Fakihatun means fruits. Mimma yatakhayyarun, those fruits that they will choose from. These people will be offered fruits and they will choose what they want to eat. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَحْمِ طَيْرٍ مِمَّا يَشْتَهُونَ. Lahm means flesh or meat. Tayr means birds. So flesh or birds meat will be offered to these people, mimma yashtahun, of that which they will desire to eat. Now, interestingly here, this may give you the concept that yes, there are some birds flying around in the Jannah, in the paradise, and there will be some people who will go and catch these and slaughter and cook them. Okay, it's not like that. Okay. Also, in here and in the previous, in many parts of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that there will be stream, there will be milk that will be served, there will be honey that will be served to people, that will be wine that will be served to people. So the process of getting all these things like milk, there will not be any cows, so if people will go and draw the milk and offer you to drink. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make the streams of the milk flow by His qudra. So milk will come out by the hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the streams running. Likewise, there will be no bees making beehives and people will extract the honey. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide honey by His qudrat, which will be flowing. Likewise, when the wine will be served, it will be not the wine that fruits will be rotten and will be extracted from there, but it will be the wine that will be coming out of the springs by the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In a similar way, this meat that will be served, its taste will be very delicious like the meat of a bird, but it will not be the birds that will be caught and killed and cooked. So this is all from with the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all these things will be provided. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَحُورٌ عَيْنٌ, and there will be beautiful women with beautiful big eyes. كَأَمْثَالِ اللُّؤْلُؤِ الْمَكْنُونِ. Their example will be like the pearls that have been kept guarded and safe. So this will be the example of the women there. Jaza'am bima kanu ya'malun. This will be the reward of what these people used to do in this worldly life. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, La yasma'una fiha. In this paradise, they will not hear laghwan wala ta'asiman. Lagh means useless, vain conversation. So there will be no useless conversation among the people. Wala ta'asiman, and there will be no sinful conversation in the paradise. Illa qilan salaman salama, except it will be said salam, salam, peace, peace to each other. So this is where the as-sabiquna, the people who will be ahead or in the foremost, their brief description of their reward is ending. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes to the next group of the people, wa ashabul yameen. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, what are those ashabul yameen? Who are those people who are on the right hand side? Allah says that fi sidrim makhdudin. These people will be under the trees, under the low trees, without thorns in them. Watalhim mandud, and they will be given the fruits which will be layered after layered. Okay? And then wazullim mamdud, and they will be allowed to go in those shades which will be spreading all over the place. Wama'im maskoob, and they will have the water that will come out, gushing out of the land or flowing. Wafaqihatin kasiratin, and there will be lot of fruits for them. Kasira. La maqtuatin, and there will not be a discontinuity of this fruit. Wala mamnu'a, and it will not be forbidden. So however, whatever they want to eat, it will never end. Wa furushim marfu'a, and there will be the raised couches for them. The raised stages. Farash is like a furush. Marfu'a, something has been raised high. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna anshana hunna, we have raised the women who will be in those paradise. Insha'an, a new creation, a different creation. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Faja'alna hunna abkaran, and we have made these women virgins. Uruban, Atraban, and they will be very lovely women. Atraban means of the same age as the man will be there. Liya Sahabil Yamin, and these will be for those people who are on the right hand side. Ashabil Yamin. Thullatum minal awwalin. Majority of these people who will belong to this group will be from the earlier generations of mankind. Wa thullatum minal akhirin, and a lot of people will belong to the later generations. So it seems that there will be more people that will belong to the Ashabul Yamin, and less people will be into the Sabiqun, because Sabiqun is a very, very higher status of those people who will be in that group. And then this situation changes to the third group of the people, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, wa ashabu shimal. And who are those people? The people of the left hand side. Ma ashabu shimal, what are those people? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the situation of the third group of people, saying, fi samumim wa hamimim. These people will be in a scorching heat, hot wind, wa hamimin, and boiling water, wa zillim min yahmumin, and they will be in a shade that will be filled with the thick black smoke. La baredim wala kareem, and there will be no coolness in that shade. Wala kareem, and there will be no comfort in that shade. Innahum kanu qabla dhalika mutrafin. So who are those people? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that these are the people who will be in such a miserable condition on the day of judgment. These before, qabl means before, means in this worldly life, they used to the people who lived in luxuries. Those people who lived a disobedient life and a very luxurious life in this worldly days, those people who disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, did not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, did not sacrifice their time and wealth for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will belong to this third group, Ashabu Shimal. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَانُوا يُسِرُّونَ عَلَى الْحِنْثِ الْعَظِيمِ. And these people used to insist on a bigger sin. They used to commit sins in this worldly life, and they used to insist on doing or keep doing that. وَكَانُوا يَقُولُونَ, and these people used to say in this worldly life, أَإِذَا مِتْنَا, is it that when we are dead, وَكُنَّا تُرَابًا, and we became dust, وَإِزَامًا, and we became bones, أَإِنَّا لَمَبُوثُونَ, are we going to be raised again? They did not believe in the hereafter, and then when they were told that a day of judgment will come, they used to say these kind of ridiculous things to them, that when we are dead, we became dust, are we going to come back? This is not possible. And then they also said, our aba'unal awwalun, and our forefathers will also be raised on the day of judgment. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Qul, O Prophet, say, Innal awwalina wal akhirina, yes, surely the people of earlier days and people of the later days, lamajmu'una, they all will be gathered. Ila miqatin, on a time, yawmim ma'lum, of a day which is already decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It has already been decided that a day of judgment and time will come, and all of them will be gathered, the people of earlier days and people of the later days. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Thumma innakum, then you, ayyuhad dallun, O you people who went astray, al-mukazzibun, and those people who lied, who denied the messenger and the message, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, la'akiluna, you are going to eat, min shajarim min zaqqum, from a tree whose name is zaqqum. This is a tree which grows in the bottom of the hell, and its fruits are like the fruits of the heads of shayateen, and it is very difficult to eat. It will be choking the throats of the people who will try to eat this out of hunger. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you are going to eat from that tree. فَمَالِعُونَ, and you are going to fill minhal butun, your bellies. Butun is the plural of batan. Batan means belly or stomach. So you are denying in this worldly life the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is what your punishment will be, that you are going to eat that zakum and then you are going to fill your bellies. Fasharibuna, and on top of that you are going to drink. Alayhi, from here, minal hamim, boiling water. So when this zakum will be stuck in your throat, you will try to drink something and you will be drinking the boiling water on top of that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Fasharibuna, you are going to drink. Shurbalhim, like the camels drink. Camels drink a lot of water when they are thirsty. They can just drink gallons and gallons of water. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that yes, you are going to drink that the way camels, thirsty camels drink. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Haza nuzuluhum, this is your welcome. This is the welcome, Yawmuddin, on the day of judgment. This is how you will be welcome those who denied in this worldly life the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, so this ends the description of the three groups of people. Now in the next few ayats, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting forth some question in front of the mankind. There are 4 questions Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing, and then He Himself is answering those questions. But out of these 4 questions, one question belongs to the creation of human being, and the other 3 questions belong on those things where the life depends, the life sustains for the human being. Without those 3 things, human being cannot survive. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking these 4 questions. So first question is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Nahnu khalaqnaakum falawla tusaddiqun. We have created you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we have created you. Falawla tusaddiqun. So why don't you confirm this thing that we created you? Okay. You are seeing things all around you and you are seeing yourself. So why don't you testify? Why don't you confirm that we created you? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, think about one thing. Afaraytum, do you see? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting a question. Do you see ma tumnoon, what you emit? What you emit means what a drop you drop in the wombs of the female. That's what is tumnoon is from. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do you see what you do? You just go and drop a drop in the wombs of the women, then you go away. What happens after that? Antum takhluqunahu, do you create inside the womb? Am nahnul khaliqun, or we are the one who are creating there? Are you the one who is creating a baby and raising the baby and completing the child in the wombs of the mothers? Are you doing that? Or we are doing that? Who is doing that? All your job was that for a few seconds and then you went away. After that, we are creating inside. Don't you see what's happening there? So this is a question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting forth in front of the people. And then He says, Nahnu qaddarna bainakumul mauta. And then when you come out of the valleys, you grow up, you gain strength, and then you die one day. So it's saying that we have appointed between you, among you, the death. Who has done that? Who is giving you death? We are giving you the death. Wama nahnu bimasbuqin, and we are not the one that are helpless. Okay? Ala an nubaddila, that we can change. We can exchange. Amthalakum, your example, like you. You know, we can take you and we can make something else of you. Wanunshiyakum, and we can bring you back and we can raise you fi mala ta'lamun, in a different creation. You don't even know what we can do to you. You are looking like a human being. We can take you and we can switch you something else. And we can bring you as totally different looking creation, which you don't even know how it is. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we are doing all this thing. We can do all this thing. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْتُمُ النَّشَأَةَ الْأُولَى. You definitely know your first creation. All of you who are listening, you know your creation, how you were created from the day one and up to this point. You have witnessed all your creation. فَلَوْلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. So why don't you ponder? Why don't you pay attention? Why don't you think about it? Why don't you heed about this thing? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to the next example. Next question. Afaraitum, do you see ma tahrusun, that you put a seed under the ground? Do you see what you sow? What you just uncover a little dust and put a seed and cover it. That's all you do. Antum tazraunahu, is it you who bring the tree out of it? Am nahnu zariun, or is it we, the one who is growing all these things from under the ground and bring it up? Who is doing that? All you did, you just walked in there, dug a little hole and put a seed in there, went home. That was your contribution. Okay? So after that, is it you who is growing that tree or that produce, or are we doing it? Don't you think about this? What's happening? So these are very questions for because these questions were these ayats are coming to those people who do not believe in the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They think that these idols, statues are doing everything for them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very pinpointing, bringing those things in front of them, that if you have any understanding, if you have any mind, think about the things that I am bringing in front of you, that what you are doing, where is tawheed in your mind, what is happening to you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when we have brought out the tree and made it beautiful, tall trees and produce and forest, what happens? Law nasha'u, if we will, la ja'alnahu hutaman, we will make it a straw. All of a sudden, overnight, the frost bite and the entire farmland turns into straw. Okay? If we want, we do it. Who does that? Fazaltum tafakkahun, then you will be wondering why it happened, why it happened, why it happened. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if we want, we can do that. And then, not further, what you will say, inna lamughramun, we are under debt now. Debt. All our, investment is gone overnight. We spend hundreds of thousands of, dollars, resources to buy this farmland, and we spend months and months to bring, all these, taking care of the cultivation and all that, and overnight, all of a sudden everything is gone. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that all you will be saying, oh, we are in debt, we are in loss. Bal nahnu mahrumun, no, but we have been deprived. You will start complaining that we have been mahrum. Mahrum is someone who is deprived of all our belongings. It's gone all of a sudden. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, third thing here is, afaraitumul ma allazi tashrabun, do you see at the water that you drink? Do you see at the water, ma means water, that you drink? Allah says, antum anzaltumuhu, is it you who is bringing it down, minal muzni, from the cloud? Am nahanul munzilun, or it is we who is bringing down this from the clouds, the water. And then Allah says that once you have the water, you think that you have everything. But law nasha'u, if we will, if we want, what we can do? Ja'alnahu ujajan, we can turn into sour, salty. We can do that. It's our power. That fresh water, you think that you have everything. If we want, we can just turn the whole water into sour or salty water, and you won't be able to drink it. Falawla tashkurun, so why don't you thank us? Why don't you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given you the clean and fresh water from the above sky? And then the fourth question, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, afaraytumun nara allati turun, do you see the fire that you kindle, the fire that you burn? Antum anshatum shajarataha, is it you who has brought out the tree, that you cut the tree, you make the wood out of it, burning wood, and you burn the fire? Is it you who do? Or am nahanul munshiyun, or is it we who are raising or bringing this tree out that you use to burn or start a fire? And these are the three things that if you take out of the life of human being, take out the fire and water and food, the human race will end. There will be no survival of human being after that. These three things are essential for the survival of the human being. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning these three things, and the first thing was the person or the body of the human being itself. Okay. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Nahanu ja'alnaha tazkiratan. We have made this a reminder, wa mata'al lil muqwin, and a provision for those who live in the wilder area, wilderness, so they can see the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So after saying, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that now it is the time that you say fasabbih, say subhanallah, bismi rabbika azim, with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If after mentioning all these things, if your mind does not bring you back towards the submission and tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then there is nothing that can be done. Okay. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Fala uqsimu bimawaqi'in nujum. Allah says that, no, but I swear, Allah is swearing here, of the places of the stars. The stars have different positions in the sky. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking an oath. He's swearing of the different locations and places of the stars. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only swearing, but he is saying that this is a very, very, very big swearing. وَإِنَّهُ لَقَسَمٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that indeed this swearing, this oath, لَوْ تَعْلَمُونَ, if you know, is very azim, is very great. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after making this oath, after taking this oath, after swearing, he says, إِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ كَرِيمٌ. This is a Quran which is a very noble, very dignified, very honorable Quran. Fi kitabim maknoon, and this book, this is in a book which is guarded, which is safe, which is hidden, which is secret. This is the Lawh Mahfuz, where the original Quran, the Kitab of Allah, is written. This book that we have is brought from there. It's a duplicate, a copy of that, pieces of that book, which is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that that book is as well guarded, well secured book, which is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what the Kitabum Maknoon is. Kitabum Maknoon. And then he says, La yamassuhu, nobody touches it. Illal mutahharun, except those who are purified. The angels who are pure angels, those are the ones who have access to that book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so one of the reasons that this is mentioned is because this book Quran is a part of that book, that which is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because some of the mushrikeen and kuffar started saying that shaitan comes and puts the thoughts in the mind of Prophet ﷺ and he starts reading, and that's what it is. Okay, about the Quran. The mushrikeen and kuffar used to say that about the Quran, that these are the words of some shayateen, they come and they inspire the Prophet and he starts reading that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that this book is belonging to that book where shayateen have no access. Only mutahharun, pure angels have access. So this is not a Quran that you can just attribute to anything. This is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and has been brought with that much guard behind it. And then he says, Tanzilum mir Rabbil Alameen, this has been brought down, it has been sent down from the Rabb of the Alameen, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah says, Afa bihazal hadith, this is such a great hadith, such a statement, wa antum mudhinun, and you take it so lightly. This Quran is such a huge statement, big statement from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you are taking it so lightly that you don't really give any regard to this thing. وَتَجْعَلُونَ رِزْقَكُمْ, and you make your portion of whatever you do, أَنَّكُمْ تُكَذِّبُونَ, and all you do say is deny that this Quran is nothing. You just deny the Quran, that this is Prophet has made this thing. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, think about one more thing that he is mentioning here. He's saying, فَلَوْلَا إِذَا بَلَغَتِ الْحُلْقُومِ, look at the person who's dying, person who is at the last minute of his breath, and when his soul is reaching to the throat. That is hulqum. Hulqum is the throat here. So when So not when the soul is reaching to the throat, وَأَنْتُمْ حِينَئِذٍ تَنْظُرُونَ, and at that particular time you are standing around that person who's dying and you are looking at him. Think about that time, that incident when it happens in everybody's life, that a person who is about to die, his soul has reached almost to his throat and is about to go out, and you are standing and you are watching all that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, at that moment, Nahnu aqrabu, we are more nearer Ilahi, to that dying person, minkum, than you. You think you are close to that person, you are standing maybe few feet or few inches away from that person. We are even closer to him, closer than you are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَكِنْ لَا تُبْصِرُونَ, but you cannot see that we are closer to him. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَوْلَا إِن كُنْتُمْ غَيْرَ مَدِينِينَ. So if you think that there is no accountability and you are free from any account, then do one thing for us. تَرْجِعُونَهَا, bring him back. If you think you have everything and we have nothing to do, then the person who is about to die, stop him, don't let him die. تَرْجِعُونَهَا, actually bring him back. Ruju. Tarju, Rajiun, Ruju word is Tarju, bring him back. In kuntum sadiqin, if you are the truth, if you are speaking person, if you are speaking the truth, then do this thing to him. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes back to those three groups of people. Briefly, one more time says that this person who is dying right now, in front of your eyes, he is going to belong to one of those three groups. The three groups that were mentioned in the beginning, Ashabul Yameen, Ashabul Shimal, or As-Sabiqun. So this person, as soon as he departs from this worldly life, he is going to belong to one of those three groups. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِمَّا إِنْ كَانَ مِنَ الْمُقَرَّبِينَ. If this person is among the Muqarrabin, among the Sabiqun, among the ones who were ahead, leading, then فَرَوْهُمْ وَرَيْحَانٌ, the pleasure and the food is for him. وَجَنَّةُ نَعِيمٍ, and a paradise that is delightful for him. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَمَّا إِن كَانَ مِنْ أَصْحَابِ الْيَمِينَ. And if this person who is dying, if his amal, if his deeds were such that he qualified to be among the Ashabul Yameen, the second group of the people, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَسَلَامٌ لَكَ مِنْ أَصْحَابِ الْيَمِينَ. Then salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending salam to such a person who is dying, that salam upon you, you belong to Ashabul Yameen, you belong to the right hand side, honorable people who after death will go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as honored person. وَأَمَّا إِنْ كَانَ مِنَ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if this person is going to belong to the deniers, those who denied the truth and the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Minal mukazzibin ad-dallin, the one who denied and who was astray. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَنُزُلٌ مِّنْ حَمِيمٍ. So his welcome is boiling water. فَنُزُلٌ مِّنْ حَمِيمٍ, his welcome is boiling water. His destination is boiling water. وَتَصْلِيَةُ جَحِيمٍ, and burning in the hellfire. Inna hada, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, indeed this is lahuwa haqqul yaqeen, that is which is the haqq, with surety, with yaqeen. So after saying all these things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, fasabbih bihamdi, fasabbih bismi rabbikal azim. So glorify, do tasbih of the name of your Rabb, who is Al-Azim, who is the greatest. Subhana Rabbiyal Azim. This ayat actually is exactly what we say in the ruku. Subhana Rabbiyal Azim. All the words are there. Subhana, Fasabbih, Isme, Subhana Rabbiyal Azim. So these are the words that we repeat in the ruku. So we are actually doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us. Fasabbih Isme Rabbikal Azim, Subhana Rabbiyal Azim. So inshallah with that we will end this surah. The surah is ending. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept and forgive us any mistake that we have made. Sadaqallahu alaihi wasallam.
Allah.